please feel free to note down the questions on a post-it as Hayir explained, and we'll hopefully get to all your questions towards the end of the workshop. All right, a little bit about TheVentury. So yeah, we're an innovation agency based in Vienna, and we support startups and corporates as well who have innovation teams throughout their entire innovation journey. So what we noticed is that what we're good at is basically spotting where the issues are that people are having in their innovation journey, and then come in and really provide customized solutions for them. And the journey starts basically at the very beginning in the explore phase, where you basically want to look at what's out there, scan opportunities. Then you have the ideation, move on to envision, where you then actually think about what the actual business model could look like, and you have the value proposition design. And then once you have that, you're ready to basically validate your idea and really start building something, getting feedback, seeing if it's working out or not. And as soon as you have found that sweet spot, product market fit, you are also ready to scale. Where we come in with as a growth marketing team at TheVentury is basically the phase before or just at validation throughout scale. And our accelerator program, Elevate, which we will also talk a bit more towards the end, is basically something that also starts between envision and validate, where startups come to us and they already have an idea and know what they want to do. And we really support them through a structured program, which is 4 months long through this entire journey, and make sure that they have everything they need in order to validate their idea and get ready to scale, basically. Today, we are here to talk about growth marketing. So my aim is to explain what growth marketing is. Johannes will talk a bit more about the goals, KPIs, and metrics, and how they're all interlinked. And then we will basically walk through the growth canvas, which is a tool that we're very excited to share with all of you today, and also have an interactive part for that. So after today's workshop, you will hopefully know the basics of growth marketing, which tools and frameworks you can use, how to define growth goals, which is super important, how to measure them, and also how to use this tool called Growth Canvas, and how the ideation and experimentation process works. So we really hope that by the end of these 1.5 hours, you will have all of this covered. I would like to get a bit of a feeling about where you are right now in terms of how much you know about growth marketing. This will help Johannes and me for the next sections as well. So if you could please take a minute and just put a star at where you think you are right now in terms of your know-how when it comes to growth hacking or growth marketing. Awesome. So thank you everyone for putting a star in. So from what we see is most people have little to no experience, and some have some experience. So that's cool. We are very happy to give you the introduction today. That's the whole point, that after this session, you feel like you have everything you need to really get started and get going with your growth marketing strategy. So thank you for that. I'm happy to now start talking about what growth marketing really is and where it comes from. And there are many different explanations for growth marketing and growth hacking out there. This is an explanation that we really like. So we are trying to hold on to that because it has everything that we do put together in one sentence. So the key essence of growth marketing is really the data-driven process of rapid experimentation along the whole funnel with your product and across all channels to identify the most efficient ways to grow. So, okay, a lot of words right here. I will go a bit deeper into each of these sections, but whenever I ask anyone, how do they differentiate growth marketing from, let's say, digital marketing, it's usually the aspect of being data-driven really, and thinking about how to do experiments rather than tasks. So when you have if you have a bunch of different marketing ideas, we really try to think about how can we make sure to find out if their ideas are good or not, rather than just seeing them as tasks that have to be done. And of course, also another important part is really thinking along the whole funnel, but I'll get to that in a bit. So we want to test a lot of things, or also, as we say, everything, because we don't assume that us as marketeers know what works best, especially for startups or companies that are doing something new. It's really essential to make sure that you plan in a lot of tests so you can learn fast and make sure that you don't waste any budgets on things that might not work for you. So it's small things like different call to actions or button colors, the lens of text that you use in your newsletter, for example, or on social media, any types of channels, for example, let's say LinkedIn or Facebook ads or Instagram, or even offline. So anything you can think of is something that can be tested. And having this mindset will also really enable you to make decisions faster, because if you sit in a meeting and you try to find out whether or not you should go for something, it's very easy to then just have this mindset of, let's just test it in a like MVP version, a small version, see if it works or not, and then take it from there. So yeah, testing is something that we try to keep reminding ourselves every day as well. Also, another way of looking at growth marketing is basically thinking about the scientific approach that it has. So as I mentioned earlier, we don't just do tasks, but we actually experiment. And what that essentially means is that you formulate hypotheses. So you have an assumption, you formulate a hypothesis behind that, then you create a test scenario. The test scenario is basically the setup or let's say a guideline on how to really execute that. Then you look at the data that you can analyze, that you can gather, analyze that, and then you can either confirm or reject the hypothesis. And based on that, you can then go back and formulate new hypotheses as well. So it's like this it's this like circle that always goes around, and you don't really stop until you find the sweet spot. Even if you find the sweet spot, you still try to learn from it and make it even better. And it's really between these three different areas. So it's a mix of, or it's between creative marketing, experiments and data, and automation and engineering. This is where we find growth marketing coming together, and which makes this job really fun as well, because sometimes you can really focus on the creative part. Other times you have to put on your analytical hat and look at the data, and then you can also play around a lot with automation and engineering, either yourself or with support of others. You don't have to cover every part perfectly, but just to give you an idea, it's basically a blend of these three things. And this is when really growth hacking can happen, when these three things come together. We're also often asked, what skills do growth marketers need, or does growth marketing consist of? And it's a lot of different things that we try to cover. Of course, you can't be an expert in all these areas, but the idea is also for us, for example, when we work with startups, to know what's available to us, and then to kind of come up with ideas or experiments in different parts of these things. And even if you can't cover all of this, you might have some people in your team who could be good at, let's say, SEO. You could try to bring them together with a person who's really good at, programming, and work as a team. And what we're trying to say here is basically that we don't only focus on one part of marketing and growth marketing. It is really the grand mix of everything that marketing consists of, but it's all about putting it together and knowing what's available. So that really helps in the ideation phase, when you kind of think beyond, let's say, just performance marketing or social media, and you think along all these different lines, and then create your hypothesis and start experimenting. Now, how does the process actually work? And what do you go through when you set up these experiments? So the number one step, as for everyone in marketing, is to come up with ideas in the first place. But it's a very underestimated step, because sometimes when you have been working with a company or for your own company for a while, you forget to take the time to really generate new ideas. So we always try to come to that point very frequently, to sit down and think about other things that one could do or the team can do. Once you have a long list of ideas in place, then you organize and prioritize them, because obviously you can't do everything at once, and there's different methods for that as well. And then you start testing. And once you have the tests in place and they're up and running for a while, you then analyze them. And then the fun starts with optimizing, where you really see what works well, what doesn't work so well. You find bottlenecks, and then you try to experiment even more and try to improve those areas. And then you basically repeat. So again, here it's a process, it's a circle. And growth hacking basically works in that way, that you don't just generate ideas once and then you just kind of keep doing whatever you've been doing, but you force yourself to keep going back to generating ideas to then learn and see what works and what doesn't work. I briefly mentioned the funnel before. So yeah, the idea is to really think along this whole funnel. And that's also one way of differentiating it to traditional marketing, where your focus is usually on awareness and acquisition. In growth marketing, it's really also about thinking of how to activate users, how to make sure that they come back, so retention. How can we make most of them and maybe turn them into our ambassadors, and that's referral. And then ultimately, of course, how can you play around with revenue as a topic as well as a marketeer to see how you can generate more of it. So here the idea is not necessarily to of course, ultimately to generate more revenue, but also to play around how you communicate the pricing on your website, for example, what kind of packages you offer, what kind of discounts you offer. And all of that is something that even as a marketeer, you can think about and try to experiment along the line of, the entire R funnel. So yeah, it's also referred to as R funnel or the pirate funnel. And Dave McClure basically came up with that, and it's a really helpful tool for us whenever we start working with our clients to think along this whole funnel, not just get stuck in, let's say, acquisition, which is always the most obvious choice to make. All right, so that was a really quick introduction to growth marketing. I will now pass on to Johannes, who will walk you through goals and KPIs and metrics. And I'm looking forward to the interactive part in a few minutes.
Okay.
And I will just basically switch the screen sharing. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
All right. Goals, KPIs, and metrics. Why is this important? Because, of course, as Pooja mentioned before, growth marketers, we work data-driven. So, of course, you'll need to have some goals, some measurable outcome. You need to put some numbers to what you're working towards. You need to put some numbers to your growth. That's why this is especially important. And here, this little saying, we really always like to kick this section off with the sentence: if it's not worth measuring, it's not worth doing. This might seem super obvious at first, yet a lot of startups, companies, and whatnot stumble into this trap that they like to focus, especially in the beginning, like to focus on numbers that might make them feel good, might look good to them, but might not really be that important for what we want to achieve. So we like to call these metrics vanity metrics, as opposed to actionable metrics that we do want to focus on. So a vanity metric would, for example, be if you're a startup in whatever industry, doesn't matter, but you have like some sort of social media account, some social media following, and you want to focus on getting 10K followers on either Facebook, Instagram, and that is your goal. This might make you feel good, might look good, but in the end, it's probably not what's going to bring you revenue. So this is a so-called vanity metric. This is why in growth marketing, there's those two kind of metrics that are defined that we should focus on. It's on the one hand, it's the OMTM, that's short for one metric that matters, versus the North Star metric. What either of those mean, let's start with the North Star metric. It is the company goal. It is really what the whole company wants to achieve, wants to work towards. So it's like set in stone, unless you decide at one point you want to change your whole business model or parts of it. Of course, then it can happen that you will change your North Star metric, but usually it is set. It is based on your business model. It is based on what your service offering or your product offering will be. So this is also where there can only be one North Star. metric. And it must be broad enough so the whole organization can contribute. So it's not just through marketing activities, but ideally the whole organization can contribute. And it ideally is also something that will help you generate revenue or even profit. But I'll come to one or two examples in a bit. Before that, I also want to have a brief talk about what the OMTM is. So to remind you, OMTM stands for one metric that matters. And this is not opposed to the North Star metric, but it very much ties into what the North Star metric tries to achieve. So the OMTM, the one metric that matters, is the number that is used as your only focus in your daily work as a growth hacker. But opposed to the North Star metric, the OMTM, it does and will and should change. So say we work on this OMTM for the next 2 weeks, for the next 4 weeks, for the next 5 weeks. This doesn't matter, but it is flexible and it will change depending on where you are on your journey, on your growth journey, on your based where you are in the marketing funnel that Pooja just mentioned before. So how could this look in practice? So here I really like this visualization of North Star metric and OMTM because it really shows the North Star metric basically is the roof of all the other goals, and the OMTMs very much tie into what we're trying to achieve with the North Star metric. Here we have the example North Star metric revenue. It is of course I would say valid. It is a valid North Star metric, but it might make a bit more sense to specify a little bit. So I always like to use popular examples such as Airbnb. Of course, Airbnb wants to achieve revenue. They want to achieve profit, or probably already are. But I think their North Star metric would then be something like nights booked on the platform. And this, of course, ties into revenue. Or Spotify, I think, minutes listened to. Something like that, so just so you get an idea of what the North Star metric could be. Here we have the North Star metric of Miro. I'm guessing it was Jair who put that there. The number of collaborative board sessions. Well, basically what we're doing here all together today is tying into Miro's North Star metric. So I guess Jair will be happy. Yeah, and on the OMTMs, here, as I said before, they change, they should change, they will change, and this is basically your daily focus as a growth hacker. Now, like here we have examples, now I want to work on retention, in the next month or in the next week, you name it, we might be working on increasing the average cart size and so on and so forth. I think you get the idea. Right. This already brings us to the last chapter for today, where it will get a little bit more interactive. But before we come to that, there will be a little bit more theory because, of course, I want you to understand what the growth canvas is about. Here it's already said, we can start painting our growth strategy. We've prepared this growth canvas for you here. We also, I don't know if we mentioned it before, but we mentioned it again later, but I also want to mention now we created this template for each and every one for you to use in Miro. So if you, in the Miroverse, if you look for growth canvas, this will pop up. So you don't need to copy paste or screenshot it now. You will have the opportunity to use your own growth canvas in the Miroverse after today's workshop. What is this growth canvas about? So I'm pretty sure each and every one of you, or most of you who work for a startup, maybe in the marketing department, or maybe even founded a startup, you have thought about a few marketing initiatives, maybe your roadmap, maybe what you want to achieve in your marketing efforts. but maybe you had difficulties kind of visualizing it, maybe you had difficulties connecting the dots. This is what the canvas is for. It allows you to really have everything together in one place. And I have to say it's also quite fun at that, because it is usually an activity you do together with your team. It involves quite a lot of brainstorming. So it can always be a fun team activity together to fill out the growth canvas. Without further ado, I want to dive into it. First, the theoretical part. Want to talk about those different parts one by one. Let's start top left, the SMART goals. SMART goals, they're S-M-E-R-T goals because they're abbreviations. It basically means your goals need to be specific, they need to be measurable, as we said before, attainable, relevant, and timely. This example here, increase new users by 20% next month. They fulfill all the criteria because it's specific, I would say. It's measurable because we put the amount that we want to achieve. It is attainable, of course. Here it's a little bit out of context, but usually within the context, you know, okay, if it's achievable within the next month or not. It is relevant, also within context. You will know whether it's relevant or not, and it is timely because it says next month. We kind of need to have some sort of a time frame, time period, deadline when we want to achieve this goal. Examples will follow when we do the interactive part. So the target audience might also be very straightforward because, of course, if you run a business, work for a business, you will know which you will already have figured out which audience to target. But also here, this is maybe not really part of the growth canvas, but always take your time to really study your personas, create your personas, and the outcomes of this. Also a nice team activity. The outcomes of this you can put here in the target audience, so you have it all in one picture together. Budget, yes, I think this one is really self-explanatory because what amount of your funds that you have will you allocate to marketing actions. Here you can also, of course, be a bit more specific, maybe your overall budget, but also which budget will you allocate on which action, on which area. Yes, and growth areas. This is where you can kind of pin down what you want to focus on. This will ideally be based on the SMART goal or goals you defined earlier. What are the areas that you want to focus on next? We have some examples put down. There's SEO, search engine advertising, maybe social media, maybe you want to grow your email audience or email marketing efforts. So really, this is where you can brainstorm it down. What's the areas you want to focus on? Are these the areas that really will help you to reach the goals, the SMART goals you defined earlier, and so on. Next step, the tools. This is same logic. You have defined your goals, you have defined your areas, you will know your budget. Now you can brainstorm which tools you can actually use to reach those goals in those certain areas. If there's anything unclear of the things I said before, please put it in as a post-it on the question board. I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. I'm sure there will be enough time in the end to answer your questions. Okay, I think we've stopped with the tools. So what I was saying is here it also gets to brainstorming based on the goals you defined before, based on the growth areas you decided to focus on, and also, of course, based on your budget, because not all tools are free. You will decide which tools you can use to achieve those goals in those certain areas. And now, I think it really gets the most fun part is the brainstorming of the different ideas, activities, experiments you can carry out. As I said before, It is ideally a brainstorming session with your team. What we, of course, we do it with your clients. It's one of the first things we do to kick off client projects, sit them down for a whole day workshop. And one of the main outcomes will be the growth canvas. And here you might remember those funnel steps of the R funnel that Pooja introduced before, with awareness, acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. So it really helps to brainstorm ideas for each of these funnels, and it really, that this is why the canvas, it kind of forces you to think along the funnel, not just think in terms of, okay, how can we grow, but also to really think in terms of the funnel. I think this was a lot of theory. So what I want to do with you is a little case. So it's going to be super simple, I hope. So this is why the case information is not much. I'll briefly read it out to you, but you can always come back here and read it again if it's not clear to you. So basically, we chose a company that was part of one of our Accelerator batches earlier. Changed the name, of course. So the situation will be that you work as a growth marketer for DressUp. It's a newly founded peer-to-peer fashion rental platform. And as a two-sided platform, DressUp enables its users to post high-quality fashion pieces on their website for other users to rent against a rental fee. So you could understand it as the Airbnb of fashion rentals. We've defined the target audience. It's mostly, no, it is not mostly, it is female between 21 and 55 years old. They're living in urban areas. They have a high sense of fashion, and they are living a sustainable lifestyle. And to not limit ourselves, we allocated 10,000 euros for marketing for the coming 4 months. Our investors were generous with us, so that's something we can work on. And now what I want us or you to do is to together to fill out the growth canvas I just introduced to you. So the way we're going to do this, because we're quite a few people, and we figured if the best way to do this together to make it interactive is on a voting system, because I think if we would had everyone put their ideas on post-its, we would get distracted too easily. So yeah, let me zoom in. We're starting with the SMART goals. I put, okay, now I have to kind of zoom out, hang on for a second. Yes, so we've put 4 goals, SMART goals. Here, only one of which, according to us, in our opinion, is really smart for the reasons that I explained before. Okay, so the winner would be 4,000 signups within the next 6 months. Runner-up, 10K new paying users within the next 6 months, and on third place, 3,500 transactions in total. Yes, I'm proud. 10 people voted for that SMART goal that we also considered smart because it is relevant, it is timely, it is attainable, it is specific, as opposed to the other ones. Let me zoom in here. Second, the runner-up was this one here. Yes, it was a bit of a tricky one, and of course, it is a SMART goal as such because it is all the features, characteristics, but I'm not sure if it is attainable. 10K new paying users within the next 6 months, it seems a bit unreasonable, unrealistic, but of course, given that the case information was quite basic and out of context, of course, I see why people voted for it. The third one, however, 3,500 transactions in total, is not a SMART goal because it is not timely, because it would ideally need to put some deadline to it, like within the next 2 months, 3 months, and so on. And the fourth one, I don't know if people voted for it, but is the example I gave for a vanity metric before. So this would also not be a SMART goal. It is looks good Instagram followers, social media followers, but it doesn't really help with our cause. All right, thank you for your participation. Let's move on to the second part, the growth areas. And here I want to preface this by saying this is simplified. So of course, in a real life scenario, it would probably be focusing on more than 2 growth areas, especially since we gave ourselves the time frame of 6 months with the SMART goal. Of course, you'd be focusing on more, but to keep it simple and just to get you to show you how this can technically work, we decided we'll focus for now on two growth areas. So that's why we put 2 different areas on each of the post-its. And now we have the SMART goal defined before. So with this in mind, the 4,000 signups within the next 6 months, which are the 2 channels, the 2 growth areas you'd be focusing on. So Pooja will start the voting again, and you can vote for one of these areas. And please, again, due to the technical issues, please keep to those 4 post-its so as to not mess up the voting. Organic and paid social media wins, runner-up blog and organic social media, and no, same amount of votes with paid social media and search engine advertising. Okay, let's have a closer look. So again, we simplified it, and also there is not really one right or wrong answer. This is just what we would be focusing on given these circumstances, given our budget. So we chose organic social media and paid social media. It is because, I mean, we do have quite a bit of budget with the 10K. It would be quite sad not to use it for at least some paid advertising. This is why blog and organic social media we would not be focusing, like not solely be focusing on, because if we have budget, might as well use it. SEO and SEA, search engine advertising, like I would say the 2. So why we ruled out search engine advertising or Google search is because for fashion rentals, the search intent might not yet be there. So not many people will be going on Google and looking for ways to rent out fashion. So this is why we would not be focusing on it just yet. And for this year, paid social media and search engine advertising, also tempting, but it's the same case with the lack of search intent. And also, even if we have quite some budget, ideally you also want to build up something organically, because what if you run out of budget, then you're not running any ads anymore, but you don't have anything to show for. So you have no social media, but ideally you want to brace for a case like this, that you at least have some organic ways of advertising, of growing traffic and so on. Right. Now, the third one would be the tools. So this is again based on the growth areas. So here, also to simplify things, we decided to let you vote for 3 tools this time. Maybe I'll go through them real quick in case some of them are not known to the audience. So the LinkedIn Business Manager, it's basically where you would be setting up all your LinkedIn ads if you were to run any. Google Analytics, I think it should be known to most people. This is where you get analytical, where you analyze your data of all your different marketing efforts. SEMrush is a tool that will audit your website. Also really heavily used for SEO, for example. Google Ads, I think, is also quite known. This is where you will run your Google campaigns, search campaigns, and so forth. Mailchimp, a tool where you can send your mails, your newsletters, your mail automation maybe. Facebook Business Manager is the same what is LinkedIn Business Manager for LinkedIn, but for Facebook. This is where you will be running your Facebook and Instagram ads, so they belong together. Ubersuggest is a keyword planner which you can use for your either for your search campaigns, Google search campaigns, or also for SEO. And Canva is a free graphic design tool that lets you design maybe ads or also something for social media posts without much of a graphic design knowledge, and it's free, so might be interesting. I hope this quick run through was helpful. I think Pooja already set up the voting, but this time you can vote for 3 different tools. All right, let's go.
So the full results are here, and the top ones are Google Analytics, Facebook Business Manager, and Canva. These are the 3 that are top voted, Johannes.
Thank you, Pooja, and sorry guys for the little time in between we switched, because we thought it would be smart to sit in the same room. We didn't think we would run in any issues, but it's always not that easy. But yeah, so I think if I remember correctly, all of you, or at least those 3 tools that we would have chosen as well, Facebook Business Manager, Google Analytics, and Canva, they were winning. Well done, everyone. Of course, Facebook Business Manager, because if we use paid advertising, which we said will not be search engine advertising, then of course Facebook makes sense. LinkedIn not so much, because the company is not a B2B platform, but rather B2C. Canva also makes sense because that's how we can, if we don't have like a graphic designer yet in our company, we can easily, quickly fix our own ads or creatives for both ads and social media, organic. And of course, Google Analytics, because we're growth marketers, we work data driven. So of course, we want to have a way to analyze all the data we're gathering. Well done, everyone. One last exercise. This will be a little bit different, and I hope it'll work out just as we've planned.
You can also hide the cursors, maybe.
Can I?
Yeah. Next to your name. Yeah, links.
Ah,
yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Pooja, for that little hack. All right, so we'll move on in the canvas. This is where we get to the funnel steps that we've explained before, or Pooja explained before with the R funnel. What I've done here is I've put some actual real life examples of ideas we've had with our clients. I put them here. So this is one funnel step, this is one, this is one, this is one, and this is one, and so on. I grouped them together, and what I want you to do now is to vote what you think. For example, if you think, okay, this is those 3 ideas, they go best under the funnel step of activation, then you'll take a purple dot and you put it here in this space underneath, and so on. Of course, now I think we'll have to give you a little bit more time, because this is quite something to read. So take your time, not too long though, but to read what's on the post-its, and then you'll have some time to vote based on what you think. And I think we'll have time to spare 4 to 5 minutes, maybe.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Let's start with 4 minutes. If you need more time, we can always add. All right, the time is up, and I see that a lot of people have voted, and with some fields, you seem to have been like only had one opinion, and some others they're different opinions. So let's see. I don't know, unlock. Sorry. Yeah. All right. So I think the first one with referral, most people have voted correctly. I think it's also a pretty straightforward one with the raffles and incentivize the invitations of new users. Of course, this will help to refer other people. Retention, I only see blue dots, so this must have been also pretty clear. I would say let's skip the one for now. Let's jump to revenue because they also only see orange dots, one red dot. So this also seems to have been pretty clear, but there was some confusion between activation and awareness and acquisition. And I cannot fault any one of you because it is a bit confusing and there will always be some overlap. So even if we do the brainstormings with our clients, sometimes we think, okay, this would fit in either funnel step. So this happens a lot, that there's not a super clear distinction. Just maybe helps to visualize that awareness acquisition is just obviously higher up in the funnel. So this is really about to raise awareness, to get to people hear about your brand, about your service, about your product. Whereas activation, we already want to perform them some specific action, such as sign up for your newsletter or come to the page and click on some things, like that sort of thing. So there already is some sort of engagement, whereas in the first funnel step, awareness and acquisition, you literally just raise awareness and have people hear about what you have to offer. I hope that clears things up a bit, but as I said, sometimes there's not a clear distinction, and this is also not anything you should be dwelling on for too long, because in the end, as long as you do carry out those ideas, if you think they're good ideas, if you carry them out, it ultimately doesn't really matter which funnel step you allocated it to within the canvas. All right, everyone. Thank you a lot for your participation. Overall, I think that worked pretty well. So we had a lot of correct answers. So I've also put the correct answers here. So this is like a filled out exemplary growth canvas, what it could look like if you do the brainstorming session in Miro. This is for you to always look back to see the right answers and everything. Yeah, I think that was it now for the growth canvas. Thanks again for the participation. We have one or two more things we want to, or Pooja wants to talk about, and then we'll still have plenty of time to answer some or hopefully all of your questions. I haven't checked yet how many there are.
Not that many.
It's not that many yet. Okay.
And just one quick remark for people that don't know maybe where to find the growth canvas. So this is a premiere. You got like a first glance at the growth canvas that is now available in our Miroverse, and our Miroverse is our user-generated template library. There's also a link, two links on the board, but if you go in the Miroverse and you go to the startup group, you will find it, but also you can click on the links here. So they're not only the ones that taught you the growth canvas, but they're also the creators of this. So you can find it in the Miroverse if you're looking to do it later on again. Yes, over to you, Pooja.
Yes, thank you. All right. So thank you everyone for listening to our introduction to growth marketing, and I really hope that the examples also helped. I just quickly wanted to mention also that we do have an accelerator program, as mentioned earlier, where we actually become part of the startups teams for 4 months and really offer hands-on support in growth marketing along with also IT. So if you are at the stage in your startup journey where you would need some additional hands and brain power, maybe this is something you can have a look at. I also added the URL here. It's elevate.theventury.com. And we're actually starting the next batch and the 7th batch in February. And so the question I can actually already answer, it's in the chat. Where would you have to be based in order to participate in Elevate? Anywhere. It's a global program. So we've had teams from all over the world previously, from India, China, US, UK, Tunisia, and a lot of other European countries. So it really is, in its true sense, a global program, and anyone can join for sure. That's that. And then also Johannes mentioned a few tools earlier. If you're interested in more tools, and that's always one of the frequently asked questions, you can subscribe to our newsletter, because that's a place where we keep sharing tools and methods in the area of growth marketing and innovation. And we're actually currently working on putting together a list of our top 100 tools, and that we will be sharing soon in our newsletter as well. So please, feel free to subscribe here and stay tuned for some content that will hopefully help you with your marketing efforts. Cool. That is it from our side for now. Thank you very much again. And I'm happy to, we're happy to take any questions that came up either already or maybe some new ones that come in now.
Yes, so let's start with the questions. First of all, what is the difference between growth hacking and growth marketing, in your opinion?
So I keep, changing back and forth between growth marketing and growth hacking, because for us, it really is the same thing. We initially started calling ourselves growth hackers, but then we realized that the word hacker is something that a lot of companies don't relate to, and it's very difficult to, especially in the corporate world, to go in as growth hackers. Growth marketing is just a synonym, as already mentioned here. So pretty much the same thing. It's all about growth. Either you hack it or you market it.
All right, and then could this canvas also incorporate OKRs? That's the question.
Incorporate OKRs. I'm sure we can make it work. However, it really is meant for your marketing strategy. So the kind of questions that we have here as well are tailored to that in terms of like growth areas, etc. But I think it would probably take you an hour to make it work for your OKRs as well. In terms of OKRs, however, it really depends why you're using OKRs. So for example, at TheVentury, we use OKR as a change management tool. So in our case, it's really about things we want to change within the company, and then they're not so much related to the R funnel, for example. So I wouldn't know how it could be mapped to that. But a canvas itself is something, there's so many different versions. So I'm sure you can make a version out of it that could work for your OKR process.
All right, thank you. And then how to switch to growth mindset when your focus is on product development? So how do you sell this growth mindset to a development team?
That is an excellent question, and I love it because at TheVentury we have like 2 development teams in-house as well, and the marketing team, and we kind of see that as our USP, that we have managed to really collaborate a lot. And when we work with our clients, we actually also really convince them to not just focus on either marketing or product development, but really look at it holistically. And that's something when you look into your growth canvas, maybe you can already include other teams as well. It doesn't always need to be the marketing team, especially when you want to have that kind of growth mindset as a whole company. Everyone really needs to be on board with this mindset and methodology. So I highly encourage other team members. It could be people from HR, from product development, operations, anyone really who has to contribute to the North Star, and hopefully everyone in their own way contributes to the North Star of the company, comes together and thinks about how can we make sure that we reach that and get closer to it. In terms of product development, especially, we truly believe that a lot of good things can happen when marketing is involved also from a very early stage on, when you develop a product, when you use marketing and marketing's tool to test whether or not you're building the right thing, or if the features that you're building are actually needed on the market. You can use marketing for validation here. And when you actually convince the product team that you can provide them with data and give them feedback about whatever they're building, if there's a need for that in the market or not, then it becomes valuable to them as well. And they can really see, okay, cool, if you track these things in the product or on the website, you are able to provide us with real data, and that helps us with our new features or the following roadmap. So highly encourage the collaboration here.
Yeah, definitely. And then maybe you could also integrate the OKRs here, because the OKRs will help them to, if you have OKRs that are focused on growth marketing, then it's easier to maybe convince the development team to also be behind it. So maybe that would be a logical connection. Thanks. What method or techniques do you to, I don't understand the question so well. What method or techniques do you, maybe you understand it? I don't really understand the question. So let's do it.
I
This
I
one.
think I think I understand it. It's probably missing a verb here. Do you do to create ideas for the canvas? I think basically, yeah, to create ideas for the canvas. Yeah. So as I briefly mentioned before, this makes always sense to do it in a brainstorming setting. So what we do when we have growth marketing workshops, it is not only the canvas we focus on, but also talk about things like the personas of the client and maybe the customer journey, customer life cycle, and so on. And in the end, we'll focus on the canvas. But I mean, this is of course no necessity, because I could imagine that in most of your cases, you already have your personas defined. So what you can do is, depending on how big the team is, how many people participate, especially when it comes to the funnel steps, but you can use it for any other area within the canvas as well. You do brain writing. So you'll allocate a certain amount of time, set a timer, like we did just now, to have everybody write their ideas on Post-its and then put it on the canvas. Just, brain writing what comes to your mind. And a lot of times the ideas are quite plentiful. Some might be more short-term, some more long-term, some might be more achievable, some might be a little bit trickier to do, especially if you have budget restrictions. So what we usually do afterwards, especially if there's a lot of ideas, we also have, we prioritize them. We have people, like all the people who participated in the brainstorming session, have vote them with dot democracy. So you can vote for your 3 favorite ideas in each funnel step. And this is how we prioritize things. And yeah, it is fun. And a lot of cool ideas can come out that you might not have considered initially. So I can recommend it to everyone to do it.
Great, thank you. And then from your experience, what percentage of a startup's budget should be allocated to growth marketing?
Another favorite question. There's a lot of discussion also around that when we start working with startups, because they ask us how much budget do we need, and we say how much budget do you have, and then they say, well, what's the minimum you need? How can we get started? So I just for myself defined a budget that I recommend, because I know that less than that doesn't make sense. But to be honest, like in growth marketing, our go-to strategy is first try everything without budget if it's possible. Like if you can come up with ideas where you can integrate maybe like platforms, or where you can scrape data, find the people in the right places, you might not even need budget at the beginning. However, of course, if you have a very hard deadline and you have to generate new leads, then performance marketing can help. And for that, I recommend approximately starting with, I'm just talking about the markets here. It might be very different in different countries. I don't recommend starting working on performance marketing if you don't even have, let's say, 2,000 euros. So that's like a number I feel comfortable doing experiments with. Doesn't mean that it's the correct answer. It's just something I've had good experiences. You can, of course, also start with 1,000 euros if you just want to focus on one thing, on one channel. But if you want to have this kind of like mindset of experimentation and trying different channels, then 2K is a good number to get started. But for some companies, they have like, a much higher budget and get great results. And you have to get to that point of experimentation and seeing what works and then build upon that. And a lot of times also clients say, well, if you can bring in conversions, you can have all the money in the world. Which obviously makes sense, but you have to start somewhere and you need time at the beginning to experiment and not expect all these conversions straight away. And so for that, in terms of experimentation money that you can spare, I think that could be a good amount to get started.
Yes, definitely. And I think it would also depend on what type of business model you have. If you have a virality business model, or something that is focused on network effects, you probably need less money than somebody that doesn't have such advantages. Yeah, so this question, I think it's a little bit broad. What are the best startup events, offline and online, in your opinion? So a clarifying question, are you a startup and what are you looking for? Maybe you can answer that, and then we will go to the next question. That is, how would you help a company that has a B2C product but have no idea who to sell it to? Would the answer be different if it was a B2B product?
Mhm. Okay, I'll start with the first question. The startup events often and online, it's really hard. In Austria, for example, there is this event series called Vienna Up. It happens once a year, and it's like 3 weeks of non-stop startup events, and that's something that it caters to everyone's needs, I feel. And that happens in May, and it's not just open for Austrians, but we participated in that as well, and that's really something you can check it out. I'm actually going to type it in over here in the chat function so you can check it out. And other than that, it really depends in which industry you're in and what your aim is. To be honest, I would really focus also on industry-based events. If you are trying to find leads and make meaningful connections, and if you're just out for networking with like-minded people, then look up your local events. It really depends where you're based.
Yeah, and I think to chip in there, the biggest ones in Europe are the Web Summit and Slush, probably. That are really, really cool events, but they're also really different. So you need to ask, what are you really looking for? Do you really want to meet investors and have like an intimate one-on-one sessions, or are you just looking for a lot of exposure? Because then you can go to an event with 40K people or 3,000 people. I think that's the question that you need to ask. I have something actually for this person that raises the question. I have 2 tickets left. Everybody can answer that. Is going to be void after today. So I have for you 2 tickets to the Web Summit. We're having a Miro stand there. However, we don't pay your flight and don't pay your lodging. If you want this ticket, just send me a message, because we have 2 tickets left over for the Web Summit starting Tuesday next week. If you're want to join us at the Web Summit in Lisbon.
Right.
So let me know if you want it. And then last question. Yeah, I already raised the question, but you can answer it now.
Sure. So the question is, how would you help a company that has a B2C product but have no idea who should they sell it to? So if you have really no idea who you should sell it to, I think before even investing in marketing, I would really try to invest time in finding out who your potential customer could be. So I would really create a survey, a form in, for example, Typeform or SurveyMonkey, with whichever tool you feel comfortable with, and send it out to basically pretty much everyone you know, and ask them to also spread it and get valuable data and try to find out who would be interested in your product in the first place before you invest time in building it. So really get the phase validation. I showed you the innovation journey before. The phase validation is extremely crucial here. So please always try to find out if there's even a need, and a survey form could be really valuable here in the first instance. And then also, if you can get some people to talk to you about your product, get their feedback, that could be helpful. Now, if that has been done and you're still kind of not sure between 4 or 5 different target groups, who could be your ideal target group? For that, of course, you can set up tests as well. So let's say you have a budget, even if it's not much, 1,000 euros. You run an experiment, you create let's say 1 landing page, or in that case, maybe even 3 landing pages catering to different target audiences. And then you let the ads run and see who reacts to those landing pages the best. So who is it that is actually clicking on your ad or converting? Another way would be to create just 1 landing page. And I'm going to give an example for a Facebook ad where you can create a campaign and you have 3 different ad sets, and each ad set is a different target audience. So one target audience could be females between 25 to 30 living in, I don't know, New York. The other target persona could be male living somewhere else. So whatever questions you have or hypotheses you have in your mind, who your target audience could be, you set them up as ad sets, and then you let the data tell you who's reacting to your ads and who's actually clicking on your landing page and who's converting, who's getting in touch. So that's one method to find out if you're like at a very early stage. But even though we do marketing, I still always recommend to take a step back before investing money in marketing to really talk to people and put out surveys. It's such a no-brainer, but we often just don't do it because, you know, you always feel like who's going to fill it out, but we've always seen very good results in creating surveys and sending it out in bulk, and basically also leaving our own bubbles and asking people to spread the word and get closer to your ideal customer.
All right. It's a great elaborative answer. Thank you so much. And maybe you could also even try to test in a B2B way first and then go to B2C if that's easier. It doesn't mean if you start with B2B that you can never go back to B2C. So
Yeah.
are there more questions? And if not, then I will go towards the end. So you please feel free to still ask some questions. We have some more minutes left. If I don't see any more activity on the board, I will go to the end. Sorry, yes, there you are. So before I want to thank our speakers of today, could you just move a little bit further to the right side? Yes, so just again, for the people that didn't apply yet for the Miro startup program, go to miro.com/startups and you will be able to get $1,000 in credit. We have several things for you. We have events that you can find via our event page. The next one will be just a simple how to Miro for startups. And it will be an Asia-friendly time zone. So I don't know how relevant it is for you, but we have a lot of events coming up, like the one today. We also have an Ask Me Anything. If you go on the left button there, you can book some time with the Miro startup program, and you can click to book some time in our agenda to ask all your questions relating to your startup and Miro. And of course, feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn as well. Also, if you're a scale up, we have an offer for you as well. So not only for startups, but for startups, you will get $1,000 on your Miro account. And then I would like to thank our speakers from TheVentury. Thank you so much, Johannes. Thank you so much, Pooja, not only for being such an awesome teacher today, but also for creating an everlasting template that will always be there, your legacy at our Miroverse that all our users can now use. Could you just scroll down a little bit? So there, if you click on this link there, you can always find TheVentury's growth hacking template, and you can just bring it to your own business, show what you learned to your fellow teammates, and then go on and get growth hacking. And of course, check out their own programs and see if there's something for you. So thank you so much, TheVentury, Johannes and Pooja, and for everybody that's here, of course, as well. Thanks for being here with us. And I hope to see you soon in our next Miro event. So thanks and have a great rest of your day.